Hello, everybody, and welcome to this latest in the ValuesJam guest session series. Milan, brilliant to have you here. And to start with, please tell everybody who you are and all about your great work.
Oh gosh, thank you so much for inviting me. This is really special. So I'm an empathy and integrity strategist, and I do a lot of work in the space of values. Values is my jam. Got that right. So I work with the G100 as the global chair for values and volunteerism, and we're putting together a leadership summit in 2025 that focuses on the youth this year and how the next generation of leadership in related to the space of values. And I also am a content creator. And when I say that, I don't mean like for YouTube. I mean like we create learning resources for children to really embed values into their everyday life. But I've also created the TAEI methodology, which is the advancement of empathy and integrity. And this is a way to incorporate values into a school culture without disrupting the um, what's the word we're looking for here? The end game of the craziness that goes on in school, the testing and the curriculum that needs to be taught. So yeah, that's everything values. So pick a thing, anything, and that's I can find a space in the space of values.
Well, we'll choose a card shortly. So G100, just tell people a bit more about that, if you wouldn't mind.
Yeah, so oh, so sorry, I forgot to turn off my phone. That was a horrible faux pas there. Yeah, so the G100 is a global initiative of women and men as well. And there's 100 different initiatives, and we go out kind of into the world. There's global chairs for each initiative, and it can be anything from aerospace to gender equality to wisdom and oneness, values, lions, tigers, bears. Think of a subject. And we have teams, global teams from around the world coming together to really talk about these important initiatives and to move the needle forward with women kind of at the helm of that. We do have men in our group, of course, because life is balanced, but this is a women-driven organization that is really trying to impart change with even in the space of big policy, working with UNICEF, working with WHO, trying working with individual governments to really let people know that we need to approach some of these things in a very, very different light. Um, and values, for in my opinion, um, are truly the cornerstone of every one of those initiatives. Because if we don't sit on the pillars of values and volunteerism, giving back, I it seems that there's a little bit of moral bankruptcy when we're thinking about how leadership should really be approached, right? In any realm. So for me, values and volunteerism, I really push that because I really want people to think about whether they're in aerospace or whether they're in um, any space, science space or whatever, AI, whatever the technology is to really start to think about their values and what that means. And is it just a motto on the wall, or are they really leaning into that? And how are the companies giving back to their communities? I think we have every company, every corporation, every person has a social responsibility to give back in some way. Service is the rent that we pay for life. And if we don't come together as a collective, a lot can be lost. And so for me, it's really about helping people understand that we have to build the house on very strong pillars or blocks or wherever you live. If you're in a flood zone, stilts. I don't know. But you get whatever it is, it's got to be solid and it has to sit on the values. So yeah, so that's what the G100 is, and that's kind of the whole goal is to just really push the needle forward with this kind of feminine energy. Because let's be honest, it's going to be us that changes the world.
So all power to G100. So what we're going to do now is we're going to choose a values gem
Fantastic.
card. So I'm going to tip the cards out, and how many piles shall I make in front of me, Milan?
I say three. I say three. Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
you say three. They're different sizes. And then
Oh,
would you like the pile on my left, on the right, or in the middle?
middle, please.
Okay. And so now we've got 3, 6, 9, 12, 15, 19 cards. So a number between 1 and 19.
Oh my gosh. Seven.
7. Oh, well. So in the Values Jam card deck, there is a Joker card, which means that you can choose any card that, sorry, any value that is not included in the deck already. That's the purpose of it. So for you,
Okay.
either you can do that and choose one of your favorites, or we can go again to the deck and take the next card. Which would you prefer?
Hmm. Well, you know what? Let's go back to the deck.
Yep.
Let's go back to the deck. And yeah, we'll just we'll start there. So it's still number from one to
Yeah, so
18 at this
you
point.
had 7, so another number higher than 7.
13.
So you
Get
got
another Joker
excitement.
card. Oh, exciting.
Excitement. Now, how could I have guessed that you might have chosen a card something like that? So the first question to ask you is this: what does excitement mean? And what does it look, sound, and feel like?
Oh, gosh. When I think of excitement, the first thing that comes to mind is, I mean, joy, joy, just this unabashed joy. Something you oftentimes see with puppies and children, right? Or dogs. Doesn't necessarily a puppy, but dogs and children. Just thinks this exuberance for life that's still there until it's talked out of them. Um, but as a personal example, I think of my little dog Leah, who her name was Love in Action, and she was Leah for short, and she was just the most. And everyone says this about their dog, but there was just something about her that just brought so much light and joy to a room, no matter where we went in the world. And it was just pure, and you could see the shift of people who looked sad or stressed or anxious. And for a moment, just for a moment, you could see the smile. You could see the tension just go away. And I think when we have that joy, when we are in alignment with ourselves, um, balanced and living within the values, the passion, and the purpose, then we can have that excitement about life and the things that are coming. It's not weighted by the superfluous details.
Okay. So that picture of Leah, there's a phrase that is used here. I'm not sure if it's used where you are as well, but it's be more dog. And I'm just thinking maybe I'm gonna use be more Leah.
Be more Leah.
Good advice
Yeah.
for people, right?
it is really good advice. I tell people that she taught me, I've studied lots of religious dogmas, and I've, did in the self-help books, and, I've done whatever. Everyone's on a journey, right? In some way, shape, or form, we're all on a journey to find that joy, to find that excitement, to find happiness. Somebody said to me yesterday, they said, and I believe this to be true. It was so powerful because it was so simple. But he said, every time our attention grabs us, whether it's a noise or, somebody walks by or we smell something, it's our brain trying to find happiness. And I was like, oh, that's so true, because we just don't find that. Most of us are just living in this space where we're just trying to find joy, excitement, happiness, and so we get very, very distracted because we're not living in that all the time. And Leah taught me more about that unabashed joy and love than anyone ever, any self-help book, because she just every single person, and I really love this about her, and I wish, and I always said this, if I could, at the end of my life, I ended up like my dog, I won. Because the one thing that she did is she made every single person feel like they were the most important person in the room. She would run at them, never met them before, just run at them like, oh my God, it's my friend. And people would, and it was, and of course I would ruin the joy because it's just, they would be like, oh, I guess she just knows that I love dogs. And I'm like, oh no, she does that to everybody. I'm just like, and then finally one day I was just like, stop that, Milan, that's rude. So I let it go. I was like, oh yeah, because she just really taught me, hey, lean into it. Let them feel that joy. Don't ruin it. But I just to imagine, like, if we could all just bring that excitement and that joy to each other on a daily basis. I just right before I got on this call with you, I had heard this gentleman speaking, and he said it was this story. This is not a good story. This is the excitement, but it was about a young man. It was about a forensic psychologist, and he people who jump off the Golden Gate Bridge, his job was to figure out if it was like an actual suicide or if it was foul play. And so there was like as a forensic psychologist, you have to follow a trail, right? So he went back to the house, and he said, as per usual, with suicides, there's always a note on the dresser, right? And he said the note was chilling. He said it's one of those notes he just never forgot. And the note said, I'm walking to the Golden Gate Bridge to end my life. If one person stops me and says hello, I won't do it. And I just think, like, we just don't bring enough smile and joy and connection to the world. Because imagine all it would have taken is someone to say, hey,
And I
or
think
smile, or
that's the key thing for me, Milan, is that it doesn't take a lot, right? So I just out of principle, when I go to get a hot drink or something from a shop, before the person greets me, and sometimes they weren't going to anyway, I say, "Hi, how are you?" And it's a bit like you were describing earlier in the conversation, where a weight seems to disappear from their shoulders, and they're like, "Oh, I'm fine, thanks very much." And in fact, I was visiting my ex-mother-in-law, so my ex-wife's mother, in a home, and there was something going on with her meal plan that I needed to speak to a doctor about. And the guy was walking past, and he started writing some notes on a shelf. And I just went up to him and I said, can I just ask you a question? And he said, yeah, sure. And I said, before I do, how's your day? And he said, I've been here for 12 hours and nobody's asked me that yet. And then we went into the conversation. I got the information that I needed. But it's like, why is it that so many people seem to be so busy that they can't spend the time of day with another human being, which is all that it's doing, really, and takes no time or effort?
No, and Alan, you and I share something similar there. I don't normally ask people how they're doing because I just feel like I don't know about in England, but here in the US, when you ask, it's like a greeting. Nobody really don't. It's like don't answer that. So I oftentimes don't ask that because it's not really something that we want an answer to. But I will say things like, how's your day or what's your name? Because for human beings, like our most favorite word is our name, right? And so when we use that, it's like I'm connecting to you. I remember who I'm talking to. I see you, Alan, as opposed to we're just having this conversation. So um, I do that very specifically, especially if it's a place that I go to quite often because I want them to know, like, I remember you, I saw you, so I always ask, hey, what's your name? Or if I see, oftentimes it's on their tag. Um, and it's funny too, because I've got a couple of times where I'm like, hey, Beth, and they're like, my name's not Beth. I'm like, oh, sorry, it was on your tag. Oh, you have to wear a tag. It was my friend, so I was like, okay, well, what is your name? And we'll make a joke of it, right? But even that, just that moment of saying, "Hey, what's your name? By the way, what's your name?" Even if you've exchanged the money and you're walking away. Hey, by the way, what's your name? Thanks, Beth.
Yeah, yeah,
That's it. Because people are just like, oh, okay, thank you. And it's just we don't, I think as humans, we don't realize how quick we can make that connection and we can bring some sort of joy. I mean, it's like the excitement. That's a big word, right? Like that's like party, yay. We can have those incremental moments of that.
yeah. And I'm curious because over the last few minutes, you've mentioned joy and excitement together quite a lot. And so I'm curious to understand what you see as the difference between the two.
I feel like I I think with excitement, it depends what you're talking about with regard to excitement, right? Like what are we getting excited about? But I think when there's like this genuine excitement, there's a joy to it, right? It's like I'm really excited about uh, for example, I've been traveling for a couple of days and I hadn't seen Leah. And I was really excited about seeing Leah, like there's a joy that's with that. Like this genuine, like, oh my gosh, oh my gosh, oh my gosh, oh my gosh. Like, I can't wait, I can't wait, I can't wait. And not just Leah. I mean, obviously, there are other people in my life. Um, but I think that the joy is just excitement is a little bit separate, right? It's that kind of I would liken it to like fireworks,
Yeah,
you know. Psh. Um, but the precipice, the inception point is that joy that's just bubbling and bubbling and bubbling and bubbling, and then
yeah.
fireworks.
I've got another dimension for this to share with you and see what you think, because it strikes me that excitement is something to do with anticipation, whereas joy is more kind of what's happening right now.
Mhm.
Um, what do you reckon on that?
Yeah, I totally agree. Like I said, I think the joy is just like, that's the thing that you're holding in your heart, but it starts to build and build and build and build and build until it becomes the fireworks. It's everything's just kind of went off at that point. It's like, oh my gosh, this is the best thing ever. It's the next level or next 2 or 5 levels up from joy. It's that buildup of all that joy, I think. Um, and maybe not. Yeah, I mean, I know you can be excited about a car, I guess, or something like that. I don't know how much joy is involved in that. I'm not a car person, but that. So like I said, I think excitement can be kind of on a sliding scale, where I feel like joy is a more authentic feeling.
Yeah, yeah. And I come back to I feel joy is more sustained and sustainable
Yeah, yeah.
and something that you're carrying right now, whereas excitement is something about anticipation of something
Mhm.
that might or might not happen actually. And so sometimes that's why we're disappointed because we were really excited about that Christmas present that you thought you were going to get. And when you open it, it's, ah,
Yeah, exactly. I feel like within the scope of values, again, joy being something more on a sliding scale sorry, one moment, excitement being something on a sliding scale where joy is just that thing that you hold in your heart. Um, so they're really not the same thing, but I feel like for myself, for me to be excited about something, because I don't get excited a lot about things that don't have meaning. Like I don't get, people say to me, oh, for example, you're going to Korea. Are you excited? And I'm just like, no, no, not till I get there. Because um, but there's something on the other side of that, and the fact that I'm traveling there to do X, Y, Z, see a friend, um, uh, do a talk, whatever those are things that I've chosen to participate in. So they fill my heart with joy. And the excitement comes when it's just like, okay, now I'm here. And so for me, the joy and the excitement kind of go together because I don't get excited about the new iPhone or that stuff doesn't, you know. So I think it's about what we value, to be very honest, right?
yeah. And you're making me think about, I took my grandson to the Natural History Museum here in London, probably about a year or so ago. So he was under 5 years old. And what you've reminded me of is we were making our way through the museum and we had to take a short right and then there was a left. That was the only way you could turn, but you couldn't see where the left was going because we were just about to take the short right. And I
Mhm.
said to Jacob, what do you think's around that corner? And he said, I don't know. I don't know. And I said, shall we creep up to it and have a look around the corner? And he said, yeah. So we crept slowly, we went to the wall and then crept along it and then looked around. And you made me think of that because some people can be excited by, like, that's a really mundane thing, right? But we were
Yeah.
both really excited to see what was around the corner. Whereas another couple like us might just have wandered along and wandered around the corner, and that's absolutely fine. But totally different perspectives.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah, it really does align with our values and who we're with. But that excitement also, again, for me, with that story you're sharing, there's you you're with your grandson, so there's already that joy, that fun that goes all with that adventure, something new. And so that's that buildup, right? And you chose to make it even more and make it the fireworks for the child. And I think that's kind of why I put those two together, because I feel like there has to be an inception point of joy for the excitement to kind of, again, liken it to the fireworks. Joy is the match, and the excitement is the little Roman candle or whatever kids are using these days. I don't know anything about fireworks, so I'm just talking. Um, yeah, but again, I do think it really kind of it depends upon what you value.
Yeah. And actually, for people listening to this, I'm thinking when you're in any situation like that, walking through the museum, ask
Yeah.
yourself, what would Leah do?
What
And
would Leah do?
and Leah would be the one that says, "What's around that corner?" Right?
That's what's around the corner. Yeah, it's so funny. She was so much joined, and we really, literally, she was all over the world with me. And there was one time we were in Mexico, and we were doing this kind of fundraiser thing, and she was there, and she was basically greeting everyone, and it was just so beautiful. And I'd asked someone to come and play some music, and he said, and I went to go pay him, and he said, "Nah, no." He said, "Just consider." He said, "It's a Leah thing," and I was just like, oh. He goes, "Love and action," and I was like, "Oh, thanks." So actually, her Instagram is "It's a Leah thing," because it's this constant reminder of when we move through the world to move as love in action,
Mhm.
as joy, as in excitement, as we don't always have to be at a 10. That's just crazy, right? It's honestly exhausting. But just to have those moments with people, again, asking the barista, "What's your name?" As you said, "How's your day?" um, "You okay?" If you see someone is just struggling, a smile, those really simple things. um, because those are social contagions, right? We know that who we are and what we bring to the table is what we're putting out into the world. So the more joy that we can put out into the world through the small things, the more those things build, right? And then we do get the excitement for the right things,
Yeah.
not saying that you shouldn't be excited about your car, but but I people first. Just-
Now
so
let's
yeah.
go to the opposite side of the coin for a while and see where that takes us. So I'm going to ask you, when have you noticed a lack of excitement?
Wait. Oh gosh. Well, I think a lack of excitement is it could be any number of things. And I think it really, again, it's such a it starts from within, right? So what's happening in our world, what's happening in our men through our run, what filter we're running our thoughts through. Um, those are the things that kind of incite the lack of whatever. It's all really perspective, right? It's nothing is neither good nor bad. It's the mind that thinks it is so. So, um, but I think with regard to lack of excitement, it could be anything from, a next when we are not in. Let me just put it this way: whatever is happening in our life, if it is not in alignment with our value structure, whether it's a person, a place, a thing, a politician, whatever, it doesn't matter what it is. Um, if it does not align with our values, then it is not going to bring us joy and thereby not bring us excitement.
Okay.
Um, but I also think that some of these things are choices too, because going back to what I said about the gentleman that I spoke to yesterday, saying like our attention always gets diverted because we're constantly looking for happiness. Um, we also have to remember that joy and that excitement and that love, it comes from within. We've got to, and I guilty hands raised, I also look for those things outside of myself. So the lack of excitement and the lack of joy when those things are uh, facing us, I think it's really important to look in and say, how am I out of alignment, or how's this situation out of alignment with who I am and what I value?
Mm. This is one of the things I love about Values Jam is the difference in perspective that it throws up. So you've started there talking about lack of excitement being to do with yourself and looking inwards. When I read the question out to you, what immediately came to me was formal settings and institutionalized
Mm,
places. So whether that be in the world of education, for instance, or whether it be in the workplace, I'm sure we both know of many settings that are just so serious when they don't need to be like that, right? And again, a story, I was responsible for all of the corporate services for an organization. And part of those services was a help desk, so call center kind of thing. So those people were on the same floor as a load of people from security and I can't remember the other function, another admin function. Oh, finance it was. And I'd read somewhere that in some call center environments, one of the things they do to kind of keep people up is that they will randomly set off an alarm, and that's the sign for people to raise their arms and maybe say something or sing a song. So it's basically to break up the monotony of call after call after call. So I thought, well, worth giving this a try. But you know, the guys in security and the guys in finance really didn't think that it was the right thing to be doing in an office environment. And isn't it strange how that, and yeah, there was a bit of excitement about it in within the team, but the other perspective from outside the team was this is really not professional. It's not the way things should be done.
yeah.
People had a real downer on it. And we continued to do it and it worked. The team went on to perform really, really well. Um, but yeah, those kind of more formal settings that seem to think that they need to drum the excitement out of people in order to protect whatever it is they're trying to protect. Any
Mhm.
experience of that?
Yeah, and I think again, but I think oftentimes the human condition, and I say this for myself as well, we don't often like change. And there's also this narrative that we run through our heads about what our story is, right? Whether that's our work story, or a relationship story, or whatever our story within a community. We like this story. And so that pattern interruption, that is basically what you're talking about, pattern interruption. Um, I can see where there would be resistance, because if you don't value change or excitement or joy, or whatever, that could feel very jarring, right? So because there's probably some people who are just like, this is awesome. So it really depends where you are. And then of course, you continue to do something, and then people, they get on, it's like, okay, this is what we're doing, and then they start to shift. Um and yes, I've absolutely, there's a lot of things that I uh, probably too many things where I'm just like, "Ugh, so not excited." But this, not excited. This is not fun. But again, it's so, for me, it's so important to think about the things that I am saying yes to in life, and and asking myself, if I do this, is this going to bring the joy? Am I going to be excited about this? And if it's a hard no, then I have to ask myself, why am I choosing to do it? Like if it's a responsibility, like it has to do with work or something, and I absolutely have to do it, and that's it. Like, okay, you muddle through and you say, okay, you have that conversation with yourself, like, okay, This is not this is exactly what I'm going to be doing. But how do I look at this and how do I flip the script on that? How do I say, what do I like about this? Because oftentimes, when we aren't excited about something, it's because we've already made a judgment about it, right? So if we can find the gratitude, if we can find the piece of whatever that thing is or that person is that says, okay, well, all right, even if it's the smallest thing, Um, I had a coach one time say to me, and this is a little bit off what we're talking about, but it brings me, there's a point here. I was saying, I'm an ambivert, and I really struggle in big settings where I have to talk to a lot of different people. I don't really know what to say, and I feel like I come off as inauthentic. And she said, the key is that whenever you go into a situation, and there's no excitement when I have to go to these big events, by the way. It's just like, it's overwhelming. And she said that the key is when you go to things like this and you really want to make a genuine connection, she said, find something truthful. I'm like, what do you mean? She goes, don't just compliment somebody on their tie. If you don't like their tie, don't compliment their tie. It's just like that will come off as inauthentic. It's just like you're just babbling. And she said, find something that you genuinely like about them. It could be their shoes, it could be their eyes, it could be their hairstyle, it could be the cadence of their voice, it could be the business card that they handed you, it could be, you know, uh, their handshake, it could be anything, but make sure that it's authentic. And that really, really stuck with me because, to circle back, it's like when we have those moments where we're just really not excited about something, stepping back and saying, okay, what can I find that I will like about this, that I have gratitude for? And I think that's a fundamental value that, if we hold gratitude as a value, if we hold, like, even though I'm not excited about big events, the fact that, I've been invited, the fact that people value me to be in that space with them, that, oh, okay, wow, thank you. Because, that's not everybody got invited, there's 100 people in the room, not 8.5 billion, right? So let's lean into that gratitude. So yes, there's a lot of things that I am not excited about. And I don't always take my own advice, but I think when you can lean into values and you can say, okay, what is it that's good about this? What is it that I can find gratitude in? I think it makes those moments where we're just like, this sucks, into, oh, okay, 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 okay. I can see where we can, there's a little takeaway here.
And when you were talking there about making sure that that compliment, whatever it was authentic, it made me think about how some behaviors are easier to fake than others, right? So, um, gratitude doesn't
Hmm.
strike me as being that difficult because you can say, "Oh, thank you so much for whatever you did."
Hmm.
But excitement is pretty difficult to fake comparatively. I'm just thinking,
Yes.
you're not going to be saying, "Oh, this is amazing," but not mean it. You wouldn't be saying those
Some
words.
people do. It's weird.
Yeah, maybe, but it strikes me that it would take greater effort and actually be easier to spot when it's not real excitement than for some other things that might be somewhat easier. That's just a bit of an aside, but I just wanted to mention it. Now, in Values Jam, Milan, you've got the chance to ask your own question. So I'm going to invite you to do that now. So please ask your own question about excitement, beginning with who, what, where, when, why, or how. And if you've got the answer that you want to share immediately after, then please do. And if you'd rather me go first, then I can do that too.
Excitement. Let's see. Excitement. I think with regard to excitement, the question I would have is what within your own construct of values, what what value, what value brings you when you think about values, when you think about the work that you do, what what does that future look like? What does that exciting moment in the future look like to you? What is that pinnacle of excitement with regard to the work that you do? I don't even know if that made sense.
Yeah, it does. So, okay. Um, I'm excited to see a time when more people understand the benefit of and therefore practice being aligned with their values. Um, and I'm excited. Well, yeah, I'm kind of excited about that. There is a bit of another side to it as well. The reason I'm excited is because, like, when I started to express an interest in values, my first book was 2013, and at that time, values really wasn't on the agenda very much. And in the 10, 11 years since then, values has become a real hot topic, which is great that people are talking about it a lot more than they used to. And whenever you listen to anybody who's trying to make a case these days, they will say something about values in order to support what they're saying. Um, However, what I think hasn't moved very far is putting that into practice. So people
Mhm.
talk about values a lot, but actually, there's not a lot of evidence that suggests that people are actually doing it. And that's the next bit that I'm excited to see happening. Um, and I think that the chances of that happening are greater because of the change in the overall landscape that's happened over that period of time. And people are now making their choices less based on rationale, which we used to, and more based on emotion and values, which is it's flipped. So over the last, I can't remember the years exactly in the research, but it used to be that 75% of our decisions were made on a rational basis. Now, 20 years later or so, 80% of our decisions are made on an emotional basis based on our values. So we've really flipped. Um, and then a couple of other things that have happened. The whole thing with the internet and social media means that the truth gets out fast now, certainly
Mhm.
faster than it used to. So you used to be able to hide things away a lot more easily than you can now. And and then the final thing is that corporations or organizations used to kind of own their brand and they used to pump out the messaging and hope that enough people believed it. Whereas now, we don't really believe the official messaging so much. We believe other people that we meet and their felt experience. And when you put those three things together, and this is what I call the values economy, and it's that I believe gives me a lot of hope that the pretenders will get found out, and the people who are authentic will gain people's trust, and long may that continue. And then the dose of reality that has to be taken as well is all of the fake news stuff, which I really can't get my head round the negative impact that that could possibly have. But I'm naturally optimistic and I believe that good will prevail. So, a bit of a long, rambling answer to your question, but that's what I'm excited about my values work. And let me now hear from you what you're excited about your values work.
Um, yeah, I agree with all of the things that you said. I think there's a very strong narrative of negative in that's pervading uh, what we watch. Um, and I love the idea that, people are starting to talk more about values. And I still, one thing I do believe though is that there's still this very, it's still kind of much like excitement. It's values are on a sliding scale, right? What we value. So there's not really this, although values is like it's like gluten, everyone's talking about it. So, um, there's still not a lot of understanding yet about what this really means. Because again, back to what I said earlier, much of how we react and what we see in our perspective is based on what we value. And so while we all have values, the I value, and I don't mean me, but someone to say I value money or I value connection. Those are two completely different things, right? So, I'm excited about having the place where we can go and where people can really understand when we're talking about values, we're talking about some very fundamental concepts. And in my work, I break it down to, five: love, truth, peace, right conduct, and nonviolence, and what those things look like within the construct of that. So for me, I'm gonna be excited when we really start having the same conversation about what it means to really sit yourself, your life, your community, your business on the fundamental values. I'm just talking about capitalism. I'm not talking about, dogmas. I'm not talking about any of that. I'm talking about the things that connect us all, those human spaces, those places, that heart-centered stuff that just, yeah, like we all get that. I don't get the Ferrari, like that. I don't value that, but I think we may all be on the same page when we say, yeah, I feel it here. You know what I mean? We
Mm.
don't have to define love. I define it very simply: unconditional or selfless service. That's it. There's that encompasses everything. But but even if you don't agree with that, I think you can say it. It's right here.
Yeah.
We feel it. So I'm excited when I will be really excited when we start moving up that needle towards this, where the north of values becomes not scattered around the compass, or the values is not scattered around the compass, but it moves more towards we're all looking north. In the space of what that means. So I think the more we have these conversations, the more people listen to these kinds of things, the more people go, oh, I never really thought about that. Yeah, let me really think about my values, and I love, with you, what you do with the challenge of really sitting and thinking about what are my values. And it was funny, even because Alan, you and I've had this conversation before, and after the last conversation we had, I can, I'm in the space of values. But even after that conversation, I sat down and I said, what do I really value?
Mm.
Like even I had to sit with that and go, you know, how aligned am I?
Mm.
Like, am I really walking the talk, or am I just kind of floating around in this bubble of 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 ideas, not really leaning into the practice? And in that deep dive, I even realized that there were some areas there are, not were, because I'm still working through it, but there are some areas of my life that are out of alignment with the things that I truly value.
Brilliant
So,
realization though, right?
yeah. So, it's a constant practice, but how do we step away from all of the noise?
Yeah, it's a great question because there's so much of it, right? And it needs people to be really on it and quite single-minded about it because it's so easy to get drawn off track because there's so many opportunities to do it.
Yeah.
Just want to share with you you talked about love just now, and I recently came across an article which was about some professionals asking young children about their definition or perspective of love. And we're recording this in December as we're coming up to Christmas. I think it might get published in January sometime, so not too long after. And so this is a topical quote, and I think the child was 7 years old, and they said, "You experience, not experience probably, but you get love at Christmas when you stop opening your presents and just listen."
Oh, in the mouth of babes.
Yeah. And then another one, not to do with Christmas, but and again, it was a similar sort of age, and they said, when people who love you say your name, it sounds different, and you know that your name is safe in their mouth.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
And I just think kids are wise beyond their years, and actually, with what's happening in the world with access to knowledge and information, I can see young people actually adding so much more value than they have in the past. And I'm actually very excited about that.
Yeah, I agree with you. I do think though that it's there still needs to be especially within because there thoughts. I agree with you. Young people are going to, that they're more open to these ideologies. They are taking the time to look at their lives in a different way than maybe, different generations have for sure. But I also, it's imperative that we as adults really start to look at the landscape of their realities, starting with things like their education system. Because if we continue to put them into this old, antiquated system that keeps them compliant and complacent and all of these kinds of things, uh, while they are very open and beautiful and honest and raw right now, we can absolutely train that out of them. And so
Yeah.
we as adults, we have to be really, really mindful and not um, overwhelming them with our generational trauma, our baggage, our outdated ideas, our concepts. And this really does start in the education system because kids on average spend, I don't know, here in the United States, about 32 hours. They spend about 32 hours in school with their teachers and more if they're in sports. It's a long time because they're spending like a third of that time with their parents, quality time with their parents,
Yeah.
So if we really have to think about the education system and how we are educating our children, what we're teaching them to value. And the aim of education is not to make a living, it should be to learn how to live. And that is not what's happening right now. And all the research, and I know you know this, all the research says that the predictors of success are not how smart you are. That IQ is just such a small component of success. But if you do not have the emotional intelligence and the ability to cope, and the ability to have a strong value structure and align with that and keep that moral compass, all is lost. So and not all, that's a little dramatic, being overly dramatic. But it really does get sticky, staying on course.
Yeah. And it's great to hear you talk about that being the key to the future. And I think conscious of time, that's an exciting point to wrap up our values jam with. There is one final question with a short answer, if I could, which is, what are you encouraged to do differently about excitement as a result of this conversation?
Find more of it.
Find more of it. Okay. Because yeah, and it's on our inside, right? You don't, it doesn't, it's not out there. And what comes to my mind, I hope you'll enjoy it. I'll find that article. I sense that you enjoyed those quotes by the children about what love is. So I'm gonna
Thank
send
you.
you that when I find the link, and I hope you're excited by what you read.
And I need to change that because I just realized that I was that it's not find, it's be more of it.
Yeah,
Because when we find, it's like we're looking for it outside. So I need to Leah the moment, be more of it.
right. So what would Leah do? There you go.
What would Leah do? I need to wear one of those bracelets. You know, they used to like, what would Jesus do? What would Leah do?
So Milan, thanks very much for joining. You're a qualified values jammer.
Thank you.
Bye.
Appreciate you inviting me. Thank you so much.